Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are doing the Steam follow list cleanup. It is in the spirit of spring cleaning and we are going through all the games today that start with the letter N. Basically, I have a super long list of games that I follow. That list gets added to every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as I'm looking at new games that come out on Steam. And anything that looks like it might have a chance of being good enough for me to want to actually play goes to the follow list if it's kind of iffy. Sometimes a game is so good it immediately goes to the wish list, which means I actually want to buy it and cover it on my channel. And that is important that the wish list be a highly curated list. It's not a short list by any means, but it's highly curated because I ask as one way to support my channel that people gift me games off the wish list after they friend me on Steam, because you have to friend somebody before you can gift the game to your friend. So the last thing we'd want to have happen is that there's a terrible game on the wish list and somebody gifts it to me and then I have to cover it and rip it a new one, as for lack of a better term. So for our first example, we'll be looking at Nari, I suppose is how you'd pronounce that, Nari, Tower of Shirin. This seems to be Middle Eastern language or made up language of some sort. I don't know what other language that might be, if anything. We're looking for red flags in particular, and we're considering two types of games. Either games that have come out before January 1st, 2019. Thus, as of this recording, they've been given 6 months to get a reasonable amount of reviews. Or we might be looking at games that already have a lot of reviews and came out after that point. My arbitrary number is 20 verified purchase reviews, which is what this number is right here, or more, because that then, to me, tells me that the game is somewhat relevant. People have played it, people have heard it, people have known, have tried it. Maybe not a lot of people, but some people. If it's less than 20, well, if you see a game like that has like 4 reviews, it's very possible that a self-publisher could put their game on Steam and get 4 of their friends to review a game and purchase a game. That's very believable. I think by the time you get to 20, that's a little less likely. These are verified purchase reviews, so that means somebody had to actually buy the game through Steam. They couldn't activate a key or get it for free some other way. And of course the reviews have to be in the positive category, because if there's more negative reviews than positive reviews, then of course it's probably not worth playing. Although I might make some special exceptions, and the other way games would make it to the wish list is if you have a specific artistic visual appeal or some other kind of appeal in a interesting gameplay mechanic, or maybe even a promising soundtrack or audio concept. Although I'm not really listening to the audio, so how the screenshots in the video would convince me that it had an interesting audio soundtrack is very questionable that I'd ever catch that. So we'll look at the tag. Sometimes this looks like this is a adventure game of sorts that also apparently has come to the Switch. That doesn't really mean much these days. Unfortunately, it's pretty easy for mediocre and bad games to be brought to either the Nintendo eShop or the Xbox Live download section or the PlayStation Network download section. So there's nothing here. This seems like what this is almost a visual novel, but not really, and half a action puzzler. It seems like it might have been originally designed for something like a Wii, where it's a point and click adventure gameplay with a mouse cursor being used now the Joy-Cons being used as a mouse cursor. But everything here looks good, so there's no red flags. Well, if we were going to find some other red flags to look out for, is the price. $9.99 is not ridiculous for what I'm seeing. If it's in a bundle with a bunch of other games, and that bundle seems to be just designed to sell terrible games, that might be a consideration or concern. In rare cases, we probably won't ever even see it. If a game has English and Chinese only as the language they support, or English and Russian only as the language they support, that often is an indicator that it's a very low effort game made by, not that good game developers out of China or Russia, or targeting at least to sale in China and Russia. Although almost none of those games actually made it to the fall list. And I will warn you that while I have reloaded this page and all the images have loaded, I have so many tabs open and it's taking up almost all of my 16 gigabytes of RAM that the games we look at past this will probably have some problems loading images. Here's a negative review. That would be how we would try to find reasons to not buy it, is if we just looked at negative reviews. Although in this case, that's not really the important, because you have 8 negative reviews and 72 positive reviews, making a total of 80 reviews. But if you go up here and compare it, only 44 of those actually purchased the game through Steam directly, so that's the only one Steam counts. It's a bit of an elitist system, but it does help stop review manipulation. Even at that, though, I would say reviews on Steam are particularly positive. This is definitely not a 50%, 51% positive means the game is good, or 51% negative means the game is bad. It is much closer to, you have to be 70% positive to be considered good. So there's no red flags here. So this game is going to be added to my notepad on the second screen. Also, we may run into some adult games, so I have a blurring feature that might use. So if the screen goes blurry, that's probably me, not you. And I'll mention that. And paste that title, and let's move to the next game. Now we want to move relatively fast, and here's what we'll run into, is images just not willing to load because of so many pages being open and so much RAM being taken up. It would be an incredible waste of time for me to go through everything, reload the pages, and try to get all the pictures loaded. And by the time I went around in a circle, the pages would probably stop loading again. Next we have a game called Nenao. This is a mostly negative game, 23% of 13 verified purchases. It doesn't look terrible. This is a good example of something that looks alright. Good enough to at least think about it. It seems to be a beat 'em up 3D game. It probably, if I was to guess, does not have a lot of variety or texture in it. Probably everything we're seeing in the screenshots is close to 100% of everything that's in the game. I imagine they may have planned to have boss fights and didn't have time to put in boss fights, or maybe there's just some terrible controls on it, or it's just incredibly grindy and repetitive. Those are all things I could imagine being true. There's a ridiculous amount of screenshots on this game too. $6.99, certainly not asking a lot. Single player, but then an emphasis on multiplayer from what it seems. Personally, I'd only be covering games in the single player mode, so that would be a consideration. And reviews are loading. So there's 11 negative reviews compared to 10 positive reviews. which means I really don't have to read them, but I would like to kind of see what it has to say. Because there could be more of a story here, although it really would just be a matter of curiosity. If they come down in the negative reviews and say something along the line of they are let's see here, Trojan, I'm using Redwood, I've uninstalled and reinstalled a few times. Unfortunately, before I dumped any more time into it, I forgot to screenshot the 2 files that kept being identified as a Trojan. So somebody is saying it's a Trojan virus. This one says, just know I thought it was going to be a cool game, but co-op plus medieval plus graphics. I don't think everything else would be so bad. Not worth your time even if it's free. It's just awful. Game is trash. Doesn't work. Game is really bad. The gameplay and controls are super janky and poorly implemented. And as far as the Trojan accusations, that certainly has happened before. I can't say for sure if it happened with this game, but certainly has been the case that files either accurately or inaccurately have been identified as doing virus-like behavior or Trojan-like behavior. So now is not making it to the wish list. Why should it? It doesn't even fall into the category of relevancy either. So few people actually played it. It only has 13 verified reviews. Next we have National Park Girls from publisher Sekai Project, which is a publisher I recognize for visual novels. This is this is a visual novel with anime girls or anime-esque girls. I would argue that perhaps there's some lack of polish in the drawing of this. It's 100% positive with 37 reviews. I do want to cover some visual novels, and the fact that this one isn't tagged with nudity or sexual content is kind of helpful too, because then it makes it YouTube family friendly. That being said, visual novels in general are a problem because this says it's full audio, but I don't know if that really means it actually is full audio and that all the text is being read out loud. And if the text isn't being read out loud, then I would have to probably read everything out loud, which would take forever, depending on how long this. Multiple episodes to enjoy. Please note only episode 1 is available at this time. There's some dishonesty in the way things are being depicted here. Let's just go ahead and reload this page for convenience sake, because if this really is just episode 1, then it shouldn't be sold without the early access tag, and it definitely seems like that is the case, that this is episode 1. This came out March 14th, 2019, and it's full English voice acting, which is exactly what I would want to find. Now, as for the scenario, a park ranger and an elf girl and a hiking girl and an angel and another park ranger is an odd combination, to say the least. This one's weird, certainly. I can't put this on the wish list. It's episodic. It's not a finished product. Well, I know that is the case. Unfortunately, I also run into the scenario where if I just leave it on the follow list, which is what I should do, because it's not even been 6 months since it's come out, then I run into the scenario that 6 months from now I'll look at it again and not remember and do my due diligence to see that it's episodic and unfinished. On the other hand, it's full voice acting, which makes it a lot easier to try and cover any kind of visual novels, if I'm going to cover any. I probably only want to cover the top 10. So this is a perfect example of a game that is right in the middle. Like, it's halfway to I should be angry at it and take it from the fall list because it's not labeling itself as early access, and even though it is, or labeling itself as episodic, even though it really is, in a more clear way. The episode 1, for instance, should be in the title. There should be way more information here, and almost certainly there's a very high chance of this never being finished. That being said, I'm so desperate to find full English voice acting that I'm willing to overlook that. Another thing to consider here is visual novels are definitely the realm of Japanese people. They're super popular on Steam and super popular around the world, but they were made they are a type of gameplay that is owned by Japanese, and when there's no Japanese subtitles or interface, that probably means it's not that good of a game. So I'm going to leave this one on the follow list and just hope I don't make a mistake next time I look at it. But it is definitely making some major mistakes in the way it presents itself and the way it's selling itself. Next game we have is Navy Blue, the Spectrum Killer, which came out September 4th, 2018. This is a more typical experience that I've run into as I've been covering games on the follow list, things that barely had 4 user reviews. There's not anything here that looks terrible. This looks like a fine game, probably made in the Unity engine. It looks like it has a decent amount of variety. This trailer is highly polished compared to most. This feels like something that could have easily been on a Nintendo Wii or a Switch these days. That it seems like it's kind of a Mega Man style clone, for lack of a better term, and the Mega Man games in particular are in a weird position because it's kind of hard to recommend playing any of the Mega Man games because they're so old. This, however, does also look like a cheap cartoon that would have come out in the 90s. So what I have to ask myself here is this a hidden gem for $9.99, or is this just a irrelevant game that nobody ever needs to hear or play? It has 30 achievements, which seems like a fair amount of achievements. Sometimes I'll consider if a game is an achievement game if it has only 1 achievement, or if it has 100 achievements and it's only selling for $1. There are 5 positive reviews here. Let's see. Unless you're a platforming pro, expect to die a lot in this game. Checkpoints are relatively sparse and the game does not hold your hand. Well, I'm out. At that point, that positive review convinced me not to buy the game. I'm not a fan of playing brutally hard platforming games, a la the Super Meat Boy style game. This really doesn't look like Super Meat Boy, but it does, according to that review, seem to play a lot like that. And when you look at this cartoon art style, it definitely does not feel like a game that should be made for professional platformer people. It should be for little kids. So Navy Blue and the Spectrum Killer is leaving. Most of the games are leaving. This one's tagged sexual content and nudity, although none of the images are loading, so we could we could leave it at that, or I could reload the images and then look at them. Alright, let's just double check. Yeah, there's nothing YouTube unfriendly here. Let's see. The next game we have on the tab is Nico Nin X Heart 2 Love Plus. The cat girls from Nico Nin X Heart 2. There's a series from Sekai Project, again, as a publisher, that of cat girls, and this is tagged nudity and sexual content, so it is probably a visual novel from the looks of it. With that, this might be a game that I'll put on the wish list because I do want to support adult games and as such, but currently, as far as YouTube family friendliness goes, that very well is a game that I might never be able to play. It's 90% positive of its 32 reviews. Came out April 26, 2019. It's highly recommended you play the rest of the Nico Nin series first. It has full Japanese audio, which frankly probably is better than having full English audio for most instances because the voice acting will be a lot better. Although it says it doesn't have full Japanese subtitles, which is confusing and probably inaccurate. I'm not 100% sure if the Nico Para series is part of the Nico Nin series or not. And I'm not 100% sure that the Sekai Project games are the best. We have some negative reviews here. Extremely shallow and boring. Yeah, that'd probably be accurate for any lewd game. It's not going to be high art. If you enjoy looking at a bunch of brats or quarreling about nothing for 2 hours, then this is for you. Characters act like a bunch of bratty chili. Some literally throw tantrums. That is kind of in the line of cat girls, I think, in general. Not nearly as likable as the girls from Nico Para. So, do we go mob rule, or do we believe the 3 negative reviews? I think in this case, with 90% positive, you go mob rule. Now, there is also certainly a time element to this. This says it's 4 short stories, which probably means this is less than 4 hours long, which would, if I could cover a game like this, would not be a big commitment. So the only reason I assume that this is on my follow list at all is because the rest of those games are already on the wish list. And making that assumption and looking at the things we're evaluating it by, I'm going to put this on the wish list. This is the kind of game that if somebody were to gift me, I would thank them greatly, but also I may very well never play it, and it's just a way to support the industry. I want these games to be still allowed to be sold and to be moderately successful enough so they can still be made for the fans of them. But as for a YouTube streamer, I don't know how far I could go on this. Of course, with nudity, you never know. That there might be one scene in the entire game that needs to be censored, and with my blurring ability, it might not be that big of a deal. The Witcher 3 is a great example of that, where The Witcher 3 has several scenes of nudity, but I don't think too many people would really consider it a game that is not playable and not streamable on YouTube. And I certainly put my entire playthrough of The Witcher 3 on YouTube with a few edits. This next game you actually have to log into, so almost certainly that is another adult game, but probably the screenshots might have some nudity in them. That is one of the growing pains, certainly, of Steam, since they've opened up about a year ago from saying, yes, you can have any kind of content, including adult content, on your on our storefront, unless it's illegal or straight up trolling. Then there's a lot of back and forth between what they actually were allowing and what they weren't, and now it seems like they finally settled that down to the point where they're allowing almost everything. But there is a bit of a difference in my mind of an adult game selling its game completely uncensored on the Steam, and an adult game having screenshots on the storefront completely uncensored. And so some of those games have decided to do completely uncensored screenshots, and I kind of disagree with that. And Steam is working on that, I think, slowly but surely. Next, we have a point-and-click adventure game called Nelson and the Magic Cauldron. The animation is unique, possibly better described as bad. The head bopping up and down is supposedly an artistic style, but it also just looks creepy. I am a sucker for point-and-click adventures, and this artistic style is different, and different sometimes is valuable. It has only 6 reviews, came out November 20th. It's from an unknown self-publisher, and I'm pretty sure he has only published one thing. This really is going to come down to the price and the reviews. $11.99 is a little expensive. It's probably about $2 more than the base price should be. And generally speaking, I want to get games on sale, so if it was $10 base price, I'd like to see if it go down to $5.99. Let's see. Can't recommend this game, not even on sale. The game plays and feels like a very cheap made browser game in 2006. The hand-drawn scenes are lifeless and ugly. The sound mix is extremely bad. Sometimes sounds are very loud, sometimes not at all. Speech and localization are the worst I've experienced. Translation issues that are really game breaking. So yeah, sounds like Nelson and the Magic Cauldron doesn't do enough to maintain enough quality, which is believable. It's really, really believable. So this will leave the follow list. Most games are going to leave the follow list. NeoCab is a game that is very interesting. You can't really say anything more than that because it's not out yet. This is an example of one of the few mistakes I made where I put games that don't have release dates on the follow list. It needs to be removed from the follow list from now, when it actually has a release date, when it actually comes out. When I see it during a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday Hearthstone stream, once the game is actually available for purchase, then I'll put it on the follow list and see how reviews are going. This is also kind of an example of the top 10% of games that are spammed quite a bit with coverage and information about them and hype building around the game before it happens. And for the most part, I try to avoid covering or looking at games that are just being hyped up until it actually is out and people who actually put their money where their mouth is buy the game and review it. I really don't need to know much more than the name of the game, what it generally looks like, and the release date. So yeah, NeoCab, interesting, but of course not out yet. No user reviews, can't really make anything out from it. A lot of these games that get overhyped turn out to be huge disappointments. Anyways, next we have a game called Neo Geometry, which is what I would describe as a one-screen Unity game. Here, let's go ahead and reload the images. This came out February 4th, 2019. This is a puzzle game, obviously, trying to get a cube to fall down a square hole, or a rectangle to fall down a square hole. This is a concept of a mini game that probably should be in a much bigger game. If this was a way in which you hacked or unlocked, picked a lock or hacked a computer terminal, there might be something here. But as a standalone project where it's just one background image and a bunch of shapes, this is barely a decent student project, let alone something that should be on sale on Steam. And this is an example of a game that hasn't been given exactly 6 months, but it doesn't really need any more time for me to make my decision. It's 99 cents. It's not really worth that. It really wouldn't even be worth your time to play on for free. I probably put it on the fall list just to see if maybe I could find a game that was similar to this but a lot better, and that line of thinking really won't get me anywhere because I never have time to really pull that off. This is also an example of a game that is bundled. There are 7 games bundled together for $6.33, which is suspicious. 100 achievements, so you know it's an achievement game also. And yeah, 1 early access review, and that's all that's being shown in this language of English. So yeah, Neo Geometry, not a hard decision by any means. It's leaving. Next we have Neon Code, which is 66% positive of 30 verified purchases. Came out November 22nd, 2018. Now this looks like there might be something here of interest. It's describing itself as a 1 hour long cyberpunk retro adventure game made by one developer. So you'll see a lot of games say, well, only one developer made this, so give me a break. That has never worked once on Steam or anywhere as far as gamers are concerned. We've seen really good games made by one person, and saying that you don't have enough support is just also admitting that you don't have enough of a product or enough skill to go find a publisher who would fund you and hire other employees to work for you. So you can see the images are starting to take a little bit longer to load. This is 99 cents, so the price is right. But again, made by a single developer. The developer, however, bothered to make a company name instead of just self-publishing under his own name. English and Hungarian doesn't tell me a lot. I haven't seen a lot of Hungarian games to know if that indicates anything. Classic hidden object elements are not things people really would want, and that is a trick that a lot of hidden object developers do, is that they'll tag their hidden object games as adventure games when really they aren't. So let's see what the negative reviews say. As that loads up, there's the Game Observer, which was rated very positively as a compared game. The Dreamfall Chapters game is rated very positively. Let's see. Echo, not quite the same game. Shift Quantum, never heard of that one. Seventh Sector, not the same kind of game. Wow, none of them are in English? Well, no, I'm running out of RAM, so the thing is not working. It's basically a Unity asset store, the game. The good, great cyberpunk. So they're saying it's a asset flip game. The city is surprisingly well made. The Fedora achievement is broken. There's no optimization whatsoever. The use of Unity's SSR and volumetric lighting effects in particular are absolutely dreadful. I have some experience with both of those, and I know that they drag the performance even in light use. This game is full of them. So many bugs. Using Unity's standard mobile first-person shooter character in a PC game wasn't the best idea. There are like 3 different NPC character models that are used over and over again. Let's see. There's a picture of Commander Shepard from Mass Effect in the money. Even though a game is about an hour long, it still has fluff sections in it. There's a part where you pick up laundry around the city for a key card. So apparently this game, more than anything, is just getting labeled as an asset flip, low effort garbage. This is not really what I would immediately peg as a game that I would call a very low effort game. It doesn't really look like that. That being said, this is kind of what has happened in the past 6 months, is that it has become incredibly easy to buy Unity assets or Unreal Store assets and make a game look very polished without actually putting any polish in it at all. So Neon Code, yeah, even though it's got an interesting trailer here, it's clearly, by the reviews, not that good. And that's why games need to be on the follow list in the first place, is because there is just this chance that even though the game looks good, it actually isn't. Next game we have is called Neverynth. Came out April 30th, 2019, so not that long ago. It is 79% positive of 117 user reviews, so a very relevant game. What kind of game is it though? It's early access, so I guess this shouldn't be up for consideration yet, because I definitely don't want games that are in early access on my wish list. I want to play only finished products. I also see it's English and Chinese, and there are a few, and I will emphasize a few, Chinese developers that are really trying to make good games, but then there are also quite a few that aren't. And then there are also Chinese game developers who work to make get subcontracted to make MMOs, and they have just leftover art assets that they then try to sell as their own products. I can't say any of that is true here. This looks like it is an actual decent action hack and slash game, at least the beginnings of that. Now, maybe what happens is this turns into a game that's only a couple hours long, and then a couple hour long game might not be that interesting. But currently there's kind of nothing I can do. It would be unfair to evaluate an early access game. So I should have just determined it. What I did is I opened a bunch of tabs and I looked at the dates and compared the number of reviews, and I didn't scroll down to look to see if it was in early access. Next we have a game called Next Stop 2. That game, Neverynth, is going to stay on the follow list, which means 6 months to a year from now, when I need to do another follow list cleanup, I'll reevaluate it. It's important that I'm doing this in the time during the spring clean time, because Steam's summer sale is just a couple of weeks as of this recording to happen, so I've locked in the right time to do this. Although I might need to do a cleanup around March and December of every year, depending on how long the list gets. My standards certainly have increased too, so fewer games are getting added to the follow list. So this game is called Next Stop 2. Came out November 6, 2016. It's 87% positive. I guess the question would be, where's Next Stop 1? Is it on Steam? And do I want a game where it's a railroad strategy simulation game where you're building railroads? There's several railroad games, and I don't think this is the one you would want, because it seems like to me that you're not really riding the rails with the trains. Instead, you're given maps, and you're controlling the workers who are mining material and repairing buildings. And so you just build city after city in different scenarios, and the train is just a example of a resource income vector. Yeah, this is $6.99. I don't think I really would want to play this. It's too much like a real-time strategy game and not enough around the main selling point of being a railroad, of running a railroad. There's nothing here being recommended close to it. Planet Coaster, I guess, would be your closest example. We could look at the 3 negative reviews, but I think I've just on my own made the decision that this isn't good enough, so let's just save some time. I would like to see if Next Stop 1 like was ever sold. Yeah, no. And the other game this developer has on Steam is called Ancient Rome. So, yeah. I am just unimpressed by this game. And by my current standards, I don't think I would have put a game like this on the fall list. Next we have Nice Shot, the gun golfing game. Let's see how this plays. This came out November 9th, 2018. It's 88% positive of 17 user reviews, so not very relevant. So, is this... The question asked here is this a game that is a Unity asset flip game that merged like a basic Unity project for first-person shooting with a basic, well, I guess 36 level, 36 hole golfing course? See, this concept is kind of funny. Maybe it's funny only for a few minutes, though. I think it probably is only funny for a few minutes. This again would be a funny mini game or weird way to take a much more polished mini golf or regular golf game. If this was Hot Shots and they put in a mini game where the golf balls were really big and you're shooting with guns, I would think that was quite funny and intriguing. But as a standalone product, it really just feels like an asset flip. And $6.99 is asking way too much for this. Just way too much. It's really in the price that it falls apart. It's not that the game isn't worth $7, but the game really isn't worth the time to boot up and play. It's like playing mini golf more than golf, but imagine having to hit the ball over a wall the size of a 2-story building and land it in a 10 square meter platform in the middle of a pond, except for the platform is convex, so the ball rolls out. I don't like the way the game works is the other negative review, which is not super helpful, but still slightly helpful. Yeah, the way you're shooting the ball makes it feel like you're doing trick shots in billiards more than anything else. Yeah, there's just not enough polish here to make this anything more than an asset flip game, so this should leave the follow list also. Next, we have another golf game of weirdness. This is Nikki the Home Alone Golf Ball, which came out April 13th, 2018. You play as a golf ball that can only project himself in shots. Apparently, you can't actually just walk from point A to point B, which this is for the most part just a trajectory simulator. There's a old basic game called Gorillas. This would be like BASIC being a programming language for old PCs that is effectively the same as this is. Or Worms World Party is kind of a good example of it too. I kind of hoped that more people would have reviewed this and give me a chance to maybe find out something about this to make it special. It's 99 cents. I don't believe it's labeled as a student project anywhere, because then there might be an excuse to cover it. It's got 10 achievements for 99 cents, which is a little high, but not that high. We can look at the negative reviews. Unfortunately, Steam's recommendation engine is still particularly garbage, so it's gotten a lot better, but it's not great. Getting over it with Benet Foddy might be the closest similar style of game, and it's still pretty different. A lot of these other games have literally nothing to do with that. If you like games that are unresponsive, this is the game for you, is the one negative review. So the graphics don't look that good. Then one negative review says it's unresponsive. It's not relevant by any means. Most people probably, just by the looks of it, would never buy this game even at 99 cents, and I think I need to be in that category too, so it's not making it to the wish list. It's not extremely surprising that we have only 2 games so far that have made it to the wish list. That's kind of what we're trying to do here, is mostly eliminate everything. So next we have a game called Niflheim, which is 63% positive of 30 reviews in the last 30 days, but 77% positive of 820 reviews over its lifetime. This came out September 26, 2018. It says it's a survival indie 2D game. What am I seeing here, though? Seems like you're forging your own weapon, which is a slightly interesting idea. Of course, that could get annoying really fast, and unless there's more that you're doing than forging, it's probably going to be pretty annoying. It seems a little sluggish in the video I'm seeing. Seems probably pretty grindy. There's also a decent amount of stuff on the screen, so I'm seeing some caveats looking at all of this. I'm not sure if this overworld has any enemies on it, or if this is just you walk around the overworld to fight different, go inside different dungeons. Yeah, it probably isn't varied enough, would be my guess. $19.99. It's kind of a weird bundle to have 2 games. Tiny Bang Story being the other game, because those 2 games do not look like they are in any way similar. It's still being updated as of March 11th. 35 achievements. Let's see what the negative reviews have to say. I think I could be talked pretty easily out of wishlisting this game, but maybe there's something, I don't know what I would see in the negative reviews that would tell me that I want to wishlist this game. Inherently, with the God of War reboot, I would like a few Viking games, or just Viking games in general. but that doesn't mean I need to play a bad game to get that art style. Here you have a review. The art is beautiful, but I found the gameplay too repetitive. In order to get the armor, you need to mine ore and collect materials. By the time you have your new shiny armor, enemies arrive and you use up your armor and need to start all over again, so it's too grindy. Certain items seemingly drop randomly. Fun at first, but very grindy with gradual, uninteresting upgrades. Durability issues on gear. Durability issues on gear being a major reason that a lot of games turn terrible. And it's not like this game has any in-app purchases. That would be said down over here if that were the case. So the idea of a game having durability on the armor that goes away too fast is really just a bad game balance concept. So I like the thumbnail, I like the name, I like the theme, but Niflheim as a product, not going to make it to the wish list. And this developer has, I think, made 2 games. Well, actually, they've only made 1 game, Niflheim, which is weird because why are they promoting the Tiny Bang story so much in that case? Unless they lost the license to publish their own game, which might be the case. Alright, next game we have on Steam is a JRPG called Knights of Azure, which is interesting because Microsoft has an Azure web server service that they sell. So I probably need to look up what the definition of Azure means. It's probably from some fictional story or myth that I don't recognize. So this is a Koei Tecmo game. You probably have heard of Koei Tecmo. That doesn't inherently mean that a well-known Japanese developer and publisher is going to put out good games by any means. In fact, I would say about half of all well-known Japanese publishers put out 50% good and 50% bad games. This doesn't seem like it's tied into any other series as far as I can tell, unless it is part of the Atelier series, but everything I've ever seen of the Atelier series is it is a bright, colorful JRPG series, where Knights of Azure seems to be a dark, spooky kind of imagery. So yeah, I don't know what to take from this. There might be some sales points here with the busty anime girl as your main character, but that's not going to really convince people, or me in particular, into playing a RPG, because RPGs are really, really long usually. This is $29.99, which is kind of cheap, and it includes some DLC. It's got full Japanese audio. So what are the mixed reviews? It's got 64 on Metacritic. If I am going to play RPGs, or particularly JRPGs, I only would play the good ones. Let's see. This is not in English. Tried on many computers, cannot launch. As much as I love a good hack and slash game with female protagonists, I can't recommend this game for the story. Instead, go for Yoro no Nai Kuni 2 instead. It's far more improved, better character interactions, better handling with the story within. Arnice is a lovely person, a nice character designed to play with, but really is the only best thing of the game. Lily, I don't care about. Junk game has been optimized for PC and PC controllers. Annoying story dragged out by pointless yammering about nothing. I don't think the developers ever seen real cats. Buy it on Xbox instead of PC. The control in the PC version is suck. A lot of this doesn't seem like it's written by people who speak native English. Can't recommend the game, but you should. It's just not a very good game. So, you know, when you have a game like this, usually people will bend over backwards to love a game like this. It's got all the niche sales pitches, it's got the anime girls, it's got the lewdness, it's got the high fashion art. It's an RPG. Here, comparing it to like Cyber Dimensions Neptunia here, which is very positive. Shiny Resonance, mostly positive. Hyper Dimension Neptunia, there's a whole series of Neptunia games. Fate Extella, very positive. Tales of Berseria, very positive. Mega Tag Mentions Blanc, very positive. There's just a whole collection of them. And Knights of Azure 2, Bride of the New, which is tagged with sexual content, is mostly positive. So the question, I guess, and I see the reason why this game is on the follow list, is probably the sequel game is on my wish list. But this is really where I have to make the decision and just say, look, if the sequel to a series is good and the first game in the series isn't, particularly when talking about long games like RPGs, I think it's probably fine to just skip to the good games. So Knights of Azure, as the prequel to Knights of Azure 2, which is a JRPG that I probably would have a little bit of trouble showing on YouTube if I was to play it. Even though that game is probably on my wish list, this one is going to leave the follow list. I think that's fine. I've got plenty of other RPGs, and if the story is a major problem here, the sequel probably does nothing with the story of the first game. So yeah, this should leave a bit standing on its own. Bit of, let me just take a moment here and blur this as this reloads, just to see how boobtacular this is. These screenshots are. I guess both games were under consideration, but I do have to evaluate each game separately. That's really the only fair way to do this. Alright. Well. So, the next game on the list is Knights of Azure 2, Bride of Newman. I thought this was on the follow list. Apparently I was considering them as a package. This came out October 24th, 2017. I'm not sure that the Knights of Azure series probably would ever get purchased, because there's a decent thought here that you would just play other JRPGs. I think the Atelier series, if you're looking for a female protagonist and a better made JRPG series, would probably be the right move. Seems like this has something to do with vampires. Now the sequel is 79% positive. And we could go through these screenshots and say, yeah, throughout the majority of the game, it seems like you will be looking at big busted anime girls, which makes it a little bit harder to cover on YouTube, but not impossible, certainly. $59.99, and then a free DLC, and then a $9 DLC. Full Japanese audio. Kind of in the opposite, unless I could just find some negative reviews. Story is good, gameplay is fun, but the moon BS just ruined the whole game for me. It's like Majora's Mask, but far worse. Can't get the game to run is not very much a good review for a game. Although it is something to consider, particularly in Japanese PC releases, is they certainly were not good at making PC games, Japanese companies, back in 2017. They're getting a lot better, and they're thinking of PC first instead of like PlayStation, whereas a game like this now would probably have to be censored to be on the PlayStation. Well, this is a weird decision to make, but I guess Knights of Azure 2 goes to the wish list because mob rule. It's 79% of positive of 179 reviews. That being said, unless this game came down major in price, I'd probably never buy it. And when I did buy it, I would probably do the research again and go, oh, well, I'd only be playing the sequel to the series. That's alright, though, because nobody really tells you you have to play Final Fantasy 1 through 10 if you want to play Final Fantasy 13. Each of those games are for the most part separate storylines, so that's slightly different, but it's okay to skip things. I imagine there are several good book series out there where the first book is skippable. So yeah, this is going to go to the wish list, but probably never be purchased in favor of other games, other JRPGs. I think the Atelier series, which is more JRPGs, so it would be more of a time commitment, I think that probably is the better series to play. Next, we're looking at Ninja Striker, which looks like Celeste, or a little bit like Super Meat Boy, or it might be a bit of an arcade game. It says it's a fast-paced action that brings to mind retro classics, intense gameplay with combos. It kind of feels like this is almost a rhythm game, and watching people on the video play it perfectly is alright, but I feel like I'd probably play this terribly. And I think a realistic experience for an average player, slightly better than average player, is how I usually describe myself. I have a lot of experience playing a lot of games. I think my experience here though, would be a lot of dying, a lot of frustration, and if you look up here, you have like 5 health hearts. So do you take a hit when you fall off the screen? Do you take a hit when you make a mistake? When you die, do you go back to a checkpoint, or do you have to start all over again? This has 3 user reviews and came out April 16th, 2018, so it's not really relevant. It's a $3.99 game. It doesn't particularly look that special. It has only 1 negative review. So I'm assuming and hoping that's in English. Yeah, I don't really think Ninja Striker should have even been on the follow list. It, in fairness, looks a little bit more polished than a low effort game. It looks like somebody actually was trying to make a game here and not just rip people off. That being said, there's still kind of an issue there. And notice I'm running out of RAM again, so it loaded a positive review instead of the negative review. Yeah, I don't think these reviews are gonna load. Yep, this is the problem. Yeah, the only review here is in Russian, which means nothing because it doesn't even support the Russian language. So yeah, Ninja Striker is leaving the follow list. It's just not good enough. Next we have a game called Night Team 4, and it's showing a video of Hillary Clinton. So immediately I think this might be a troll game. That being said, 92% positive of 227 reviews tells me it very well may not be a troll game. The military hacking simulation game that explores the world of cyber warfare and features realistic mission scenarios from Allison Smith, which I recognize that name as a publisher and developer, so I think they might be a troll publisher. That being said, this game does not look like a troll game. This looks like a real game. $34.99, English only, third-party account required. That seems weird and unnecessary. Let's see what else they've made. They made a game called Annie Now Your Road, The Dream World, and they made The Black Watchman, which was a augmented reality game, I believe. So the question here, more than anything, is this a game I want to really try and play? Or is this just so extremely political that even YouTube wouldn't allow it nowadays? Or by the time I got around to playing it. It's stupid to have to think that way, but it's very possible. It's bundled with Uplink, which is a hacking simulation game that I probably already own. Yeah, I definitely already own that. And so that's that. It's also bundled with Hacknet, which is another hacking simulation game, and this is just kind of an example of even more of that. Let's see. It's a pretty solid hacking sim, and most people more educated than I say it's really close to reality. And those are big probes, but there are just too many cons. The console windows, you have to juggle a bunch of them, and mostly rely on one or two commands, which really don't justify the existence of unique windows. Let's see. Rough unfinished systems. Poor puzzle signaling. Yeah, so this might not be this might be more of a hacking sim than a real game. I think this deserves to go on the wish list though. I think the reviews say it's good. I don't know why I need to make a third-party account per se, but I'm gonna put this on the wish list. This might be too inside baseball, frankly, as a hacking sim to justify actually ever covering it. It might very well be a game that I only play for an hour and do a spotlight on, or 30 minutes and do a spotlight on, but everything here looks polished enough to deserve a chance. $35 though certainly is a high price, and I would definitely want to get that on sale. Let's see. Next game we have is called No Time to Relax, which is a life simulation game where up to 4 players online or locally compete against each other in the ultimate game of life, which this is early access, but also I think it's not really single player. So I don't think I could actually cover it. Beat your high score in single player mode or compete against computer players. Okay. So you can play single player. Do I want to play single player? Let's see. Let's go back to the beginning here. So I think this is probably a commentary on life in general, where you're running around playing this game that is going to heavily center around working a job and getting money, but not enough money to actually live off of, and try to do something with your life, which, let's face it, is a very difficult thing to do in reality, and depressing thing to have to deal with in reality if you're an actual adult. So I don't know why you'd want to do this in a game. This is a lot like so many games where you're simulating somebody's job. Why would you want to do somebody's jobs? Jobs, by their very definition, are not fun things you'd want to do for free. That being said, there is a high amount of polish here. This does kind of feel like the game of life if somebody took the general concept of the game of life, modernized it, and made something new with it. It's 91% positive of 47 user reviews. I don't really need to look at the user reviews right now. It's early access though, so this should just stay on early access. I shouldn't even be considering this game yet. So yeah, it's going away. Next we have a game called Noise that's tagged sexual content. So let's go ahead and get blurred for a second just to make sure none of the screenshots are not family friendly. So Noise, I think, is probably one of these series of games that are either made by like Chinese developers or just very low effort developers from around the world, where they'll get kind of an anime thumbnail style that will catch people's attention, and they'll make what looks like a decent game. This looks like a decent platforming game, and then they'll just throw in nudity and sex scenes right in the middle of the game for no reason. And certainly Japanese developers, they are not excluded from this list. Japanese developers have been making games like that like crazy. I don't know if it actually is a case of a game was in development, it lost its publisher, it lost its funding, it ran out of money, and then the only way they saw that they could make any profit is by adding in content that then would be easily censored right back out. Or if maybe it's just a jaded mentality of certain game developers. There certainly are websites, or at least were websites, where you would make flash games that would just throw in those scenes, but those scenes are the nudity scenes, the sex scenes are too hard to animate because they require better art style and more time. So wrapping it around a video game is a way of stretching content. This is $17.99. It supports English, Japanese, and Chinese. So this is an older game too, so it's from 2018. It doesn't have a mature content warning like modern games would be required. That being said, this is also a user defined tag, so this could be totally wrong. There could be nothing in here. That being said, it kind of doesn't matter. The game is plain and simple bad, and the price only makes it worse. This is the one review in English. On the other hand, there are some games out there that you might consider hide as an interesting game, where it's a pretty decent game, and yet the creator just wanted to have a big behind-ed, big-breasted robot, so that's what he put in it. And I guess that's artistic. That is your artistic prerogative. Cinderella Escape is another example of a game that has nudity and lewd art in it for no reason when it's a simple box puzzle game. So these certainly have been around. Deader School is mostly a hack and slash game with a few CG scenes. But yeah, without even knowing the reasoning behind it, $18 when it's completely irrelevant this is a very easy game to leave and take off the fall list. And clearly my standards would be higher now than they were when I added this to the fall list, because there's really no reason why a game like this should have been on the fall list in the first place. There's no actual gameplay element, nothing here that I could really criticize or talk about that is unique or special enough to deserve coverage on my YouTube channel. Next we have a game on Steam called Noglios, Nogalios. I don't know how you'd pronounce that. Nagolios, perhaps? This came out August 8th, 2018. It's $9.99. This looks like a retro Nintendo style game. I'm not a big fan of retro looking games. So I don't know why this would have even made it to the fall list. Yeah. I don't see a reason for this. It's not relevant. It just looks like an old game. $9.99 is really expensive. I could look at the reviews. This is a bunch of negative reviews from people that got it for free. Not worth the money, terrible grammar, awful mechanics, no explanations or juddering scenes. Yeah, I am just dumbfounded that that's even on the fall list. Yeah, that's leaving. Next we have a game called Northern Lights. This came out February 18th, 2019, and it's 48% positive. This looks like it's probably a Limbo style dark platforming game or adventure game of some sort. And with games like Limbo, and there was a sequel or a semi-sequel to the Limbo from the creators of Limbo, I don't really have a reason to want to play a clone of that style of game, particularly when it's not well received. Let's see. Seems like the vast majority of the time you're just going to be walking around. It doesn't even really show any places where you're solving puzzles or jumping platforms. Maybe you're trying to avoid the light, but there's some games even better than this around that concept. Yeah. It is a pretty basic concept too, avoiding the light. $1.99, and still it is 48% positive. So Mob Rule says don't bother to read it, to play it. I quite enjoyed the 15 minutes it took me to play the game. Some are saying it can be done in 25 minutes, so I'm obviously a terrible player. Takes me back to Inside. Inside is the name of the sequel to Limbo. Shows great potential. Even that, though it's saying nice stuff at the beginning, it's still negative. I'd love to see next, but if this is it, I'm going to be gravely disappointed. And it seems like this is it, because yeah, it doesn't seem like there's anything else made. And this developer has made a couple other games, but that's kind of it. Yeah, Northern Lights is leaving the fall list. Next we have a game called Nostoi, and oddly this loaded everything up. Why would this one tab have loaded all the images? Nah, it just put all the ones. Nostoi, it says, is a narrative 3D puzzle platforming game with gameplay mechanics based on physics and time manipulation. There was a game that feels somewhat like this called it's not, is it Yumi Nikki Dream Diary, which was the remake of Yumi Nikki, and Yumi Nikki I think in Japanese actually means Dream Diary, so it's saying Dream Diary, Dream Diary. So anyways, that has nothing really to do with this game other than it seems somewhat similar, although it also seems like this could just be a surreal game or a weird game for weirdness sake. I like this art style though. It's kind of unique and it fits this universe and this world. The question I guess would come down to, how long is this game? Is this really a game worth playing? Or is this really just a tech demo? Came out September 28th, 2018. It has 2 user reviews, so that is a particularly small amount of things, of reviews. It's $1.99, so it doesn't have to be that long. English only. Feels like it. 3D platforming game in Unreal Engine 4, but lacking keyboard remapping, lacking access control and sensitivity, lacking field of view controls, camera's claustrophobic and bites and tight on the back of the character's head. How is a 3D game based on physics mechanics ignore something so fundamental as controls? Does anybody really bother to beta this game on PC with real players? Avoid. This one says they'd be neutral. So yeah, this feels like this is more of a student project or a attempt at a game, not a finished product. I think this needs to leave the follow list. It didn't ever get any relevancy, and it sounds like it would be just a nightmare to play. And I don't think there's been no updates to it or anything like that. So it's just getting shoved out on Steam, which, yeah, I don't know if I'd even call this a bad enough quality game to deserve to be taken off of Steam, but there's certainly something to be said about it being short and not very relevant. So that's leaving. Next we have a game called Numgeon, which is probably, if I was to guess, a hack and slash. I was thinking it would be a .hack clone, but I guess I'm wrong on that. Tiny, retro-styled, highly addictive, fast-paced, casual clicker RPG. So you're shown a block of numbers, and then you click the numbers in order to do damage. But if you click all the numbers, you don't get any gold, so you want to only click as many as necessary, which is an interesting idea. Although this really feels like something that should have been on the cell phone instead of a PC, and it to me feels like that is definitely designed that way too. Is this a game I really want to play though? Because it's just a clicker game, and I have a little bit of arthritis in my fingers, so playing a game that's going to be heavily around clicking would be really annoying. It's 83% positive of 31 verified purchase reviews. It came out December 15th, 2018. I don't think I want to play this. It's $2.99. It has 25 achievements, full English audio. It looks like a game for other people you might want to play if you're into idle games, but I think for me in particular, the gameplay mechanic is a big turn off. I could look at negative reviews here, but I don't think it's really going to change. There are 3 characters in the game. There's at least 4 locations. some upgrades, and you unlock new color palettes and game modes and heroes. Kevin MacLeod, by the way, is a open source musician who publishes a lot of his things for public domain use or license free use. This game looks and feels fantastic, but I've never seen such a poorly thought out core loop. Clicking numbers in order is neither fun nor interesting. There's no challenge to it. Everything surrounding the core loop may be great, but I can't solve the fundamental problem of a lacking in challenge. Yeah, and I kind of agree with that. I think this is a bad concept in the main part of it. Why not take this concept and just change it to math? If it was asking you to do math and type in the answers mathematically, at least then there'd be some challenge there. But just going in order is kind of ridiculous. Or you could have made a simple match 3 game like Candy Crush, or you could have made a simple yeah, if you made a match 3 game, then you're just playing You Must Build a Boat, or 10 million. So there's definitely better ways this could have been done. Moving on. Next we have a game tag sexual content, so let's blur this out. Again, in seems to be kind of heavy on the lewd visual novels, somewhat, and in particular it seems to be mostly heavy on the girl on girl action. We have Nurse Love Syndrome. This came out April 18th, 2019. It's 100% positive with 20 user reviews. It's a visual novel, tag sexual content anime. It's $39.99. Apparently there's some... no, that's a different game. It's full Japanese audio. I think I'm gonna probably bounce back and forth on visual novels, and I'm kind of in a positive mood right now, so a game like this I think is going to fall in the category of something that should make it to the wish list. These are the kind of just, I want to support the industry. It's from the Geisha, which is a well-known publisher, to me at least. These are the kind of games I want to support existence of, but probably games I couldn't really cover. Maybe someday, if I have enough of these games and enough time, I'll figure out some way to come back and do an edited, abbreviated coverage of the game, but that's pretty much all I could do for something like this. On the other hand, if you have no interest in lewd games, if you have no interest in visual novels, of course this would not be a game to recommend for other people. Let's see, next we have a game here, and I guess we're probably going to be safe here. We have a game called New Santera, Legends of the Winged Ones, which is kind of a, I would say it's sort of a anthropomorphized angel slash winged creatures. Maybe this is based off some Native American characters, but it's also kind of like a furry style game, and there's a few furry games out there. This is tagged as an otome visual novel. Otome means young maiden, so it's a visual novel for teenage girls combined with Indonesian culture. All right, about a girl who falls in love with a world full of mysterious men. All right, well, Indonesian culture is certainly something I'm not familiar with, so there's something interesting in this story, if it is telling the truth in any way whatsoever. That being said, this is the kind of game that would be given special exception to be put on the wish list because it has only 6 user reviews, came out December 13th, 2015. It's $4.99, and it's English only, and I don't know what they speak in Indonesia, but I bet it's not English only. So I don't know how accurate the influence is. There's no negative reviews. It's probably not a super long game, and you're seeing a lot of people got it for free and rating it positively, which doesn't mean too much. I think this one deserves to go on the wish list for the same reason. Yeah. Unique story for sure. This game isn't tagged with any nudity or sexual content, being a game that came out in 2015, so they probably had to censor themselves a little bit to be on Steam if there was any content here, but you will get to see a bunch of shirtless guys. At the very least, it's promising that. So yeah, that seems interesting. Interesting enough to cover, to have. And with that, that is the last one we're talking about too, because that's all the games that start with the letter N. And it only took us about an hour and a half, according to my clock, to get through games starting with the letter N, which is frankly a little surprising. Yeah, really surprising. It didn't take longer. It's usually been about 2 hours, and I thought games starting with N would have taken more. We did have a heavy amount of visual novels in, whereas the past 4 or 5 videos where we covered other letters of the alphabet weren't really running into a lot of them. But in total, we've only got about 7 games that are actually making it to the wish list, where everything else is disappearing and being removed from the follow list. So we did a good job, nice and quick. So let's just wrap it up. Next time we'll be doing games starting with the letter O, and that may be even shorter. It might only be like 30 minutes. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. When you subscribe to my channel, make sure you click the notification bell and click the little pull down on the notification bell to make sure you get all notifications if you want all notifications. Otherwise, you won't get them. If you want to support me even further, there's a link down below to Patreon. Or, the whole reason why we're doing the follow list cleanup, you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. A Steam sale is always around the corner, and it's always a good time to be gifted a few more games to cover. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.